Hi and welcome to Yeshiva Hashem and Aver. I'm Rabbi David Katz, and this is the Tehillim in-depth series. This is class number 8, and we are going over verses, just like last week, we have a lot of verses right in a row. It's kind of a momentum that's happening in the verses. We started off very slow, one verse a week. In the last couple weeks, it's been several verses. So we're going to be going over 12, 13, 14, and 15 of Psalm 72. Again, for those that are either catching up or missed the classes, Psalm 72 was chosen because it's the last psalm of King David. I know it's not numerically last, but King David finishes his psalms with a quasi-Messianic charge to King Solomon, his son, and the Psalms end with David signing off. Finished is the psalm writing of David, son of Jesse. Besides the fact that 72 is a very powerful number, and when you get involved in Psalms, learning it on an in-depth level, we know that King David was epitomized by his divine inspiration. Right? That's what sets King David apart, aside from the fact that he's a prophet, and that he had a lot of, obviously a king, a warrior, passionate for the heart of God. But it's his divine inspiration that really grabs you. An example of divine inspiration, we hear these words in English, and even in Hebrew, Ruach HaKodesh. What is it really? You don't walk into McDonald's every day and meet a guy that has divine inspiration. Where do you find divine inspiration? So an example that I think everybody has that spark of the soul of the Messiah in them. Right? We know that the Messiah represents the Yechidah, that level of union amongst all of mankind. So we all have a spark of it. That's what makes it possible. That we can have, a one global Beis Hamikdash and Torah for mankind, all these things. So here's the example. Have you ever spoken a subconscious note while you're speaking? And it usually is followed by a no pun intended phrase, right? For example, I don't know. I can think of one off the top of my head. You know how it is when you say something. Okay, I was thinking a really bad joke, but you'll get the point done. Somebody, to make it a fictitious scenario, there's a grapevine, and let's say the grapes are looking more like raisins. And one of the raisiny grapes, you can make out, the features of the wrinkles that it looks like a baby face. And you say, "Hey, look at this." If you listen, you'll notice that he lets out a little wine. So what's the obvious joke? That you're talking about crying, but grapes give wine, W-I-N-E, right? And so you'll say, oh, that's silly, no pun intended. But in our speech, I'm sure, if you think about it, we've all been in those situations where you're speaking, let's say, here's a good one. This actually happened to me once, embarrassingly enough. You're around an anorexic, and let's say there's food coming in a situation not for the anorexic but for you, and you say, "Oh man, I could really go for this meal. I'm starving. How about you?" And you say, "Oh man, that was rude. Why did I do that?" Right? We've all been in those situations where we just you come out with some kind of a statement in the presence of somebody, and you said exactly the wrong thing, right? Exactly the wrong thing. But not like, hey, I don't really like you, Jim. Not like that. We're not saying your emotions. That the exact point of that person's biggest issue, you came right out in a hint. Right? I'm starving. How about you? You weren't thinking about mocking this person. You had no intention of mocking this person. It just came out. All right, so that's already in Klippa, and the not so holy part of speech, because what comes out of that? Not much. Imagine now you're King David, right? Ramp up the volume on this starving quote and take it to like nuclear 1 million. So David's writing Psalms, and as he writes, the inspiration is right on target. By the way, I wrote down a note today. I wanted to save this for my files in case it came up. So it's coming up now. People want to say with names, right? Everyone knows that I'm involved in shtickle with names. Is it astrology? Is it fortune telling? Is it divining? All these things that people can say from not knowing anything about names and why the Jewish concept of having a name and its importance and how it's all part of Torah. The idea is that the same inspiration is in names, right? We know that the names are prophetic when we get named or give a name. And so the mazel of the name is actually the inspiration that is befitting to you. I'll give you an example, a really, really nice example. It's not so deep, but it's easy to understand. A friend of mine is a comedian. And let's just say that I don't want to call him out by name for whatever reason, but let's just say his initials are L.A. Let's just make up a name. Larry Engelson. Right? That's not his name, but let's just make it up for context. And he's a comedian. Now, as a comedian, you're already thinking, right, how am I going to be set apart different than all the other comedians? But you can't be overt, right? Hey, everybody, come look at me. I'm the funniest. You can't do that, right? You need something very close to home, like, when you do a symbol, like Tiger Woods, Michael Jordan. Really simple. You can't have the symbol for Michael Jordan being a guy in the world and a basketball court in the Harlem Globetrotters all around watching me fly through the air. It's got to be really, really clean and simple and to the point. Because that's what inspiration is. Right? Inspiration cannot be where you build an immaculate construct to prove a little thing. So think about it. This guy is a comedian, and we all know Los Angeles, Hollywood is like it, right? If you're going to make it in that world, L.A. is the place to go. So how fitting is it to sign as like your chatima, your signature on electronic media? As a comedian, you tell your joke or you put your 2 cents in, whatever it is, and you sign L.A. Now, it fits. Right? You guys see this, how it fits? It's not grossly like, wow, this guy is Hollywood. But it's enough that you notice a bit of chen, grace or charm. And it's perfect. My name gives me L.A. And L.A. is like, the pilgrimage of all comedic destination. That's divine inspiration. When you got the name and you lived your life and you went through teenage years and you grew up and you got a profession and you fine-tuned it and you found out your initials are the greatest identification card that really sizes you up in one little flick of the wrist of the L.A. Name rating is the exact same thing. You have a name, and with one little shift each time, a gematria, a letter, a translation, is you. Is you. In fact, my name came clear to me today from this whole exercise. Believe it or not. I looked into all of my life, what I do, just reflection, contemplation. And I realized David Pesach, which is beloved or my beloved, but more really to the point, intimacy. And we're not talking physical intimacy. We're saying just close sharing, bonding, an intimate night with Jerry Seinfeld at the Improv, asking him questions about what it was like on the show Seinfeld. Right? It's not the big comedy extravaganza. It's an intimate night with Jerry, 25 people, candlelit dinner, sitting down, telling stories. It's an intimacy, as opposed to the opposite of intimacy. And so Pesach means a mouth that speaks. And I realized that's me. For better or for worse, take it or leave it, either love me or hate me, I'm not the kind of guy that you'll say, wow, it was one big non-intimate evening. I can't help but be intimacy, mouth that speaks. Giving over what I hear from others if I desire to give it over in an intimate way. This lecture right now, is this not in a case of intimacy of the mouth that speaks? We cannot help but be ourselves. You are you. And out of you comes inspiration to be you. And the society, as you intermingle with the world, they're trying to ascertain who you are, but we don't spend all night long thinking about who you are. So we don't articulate. But you give out these little inspirations where you say, oh yeah, that's him. That's him. And your name is like the hub that contains all that inspiration in very simple little hints. King David's style of writing is that. It's all about the little hints of inspiration and gematrias that are all one step from the basic flow. Pure inspiration. How we got talking about inspiration, I forget. But that's the idea of King David in his inspiration. So we're saying because it's the last of the Psalms that he wrote and charged to King Solomon. The 72, right? So in King David's writings, the 72 means something, right? The reason why he signs off David, son of Jesse, means something. He can't help but be inspired. There might be more to David than what I'm saying, but from my perspective, David, in this angle, he is inspiration. We learn inspiration from King David. And just to wrap up the name issue, everybody has a name, whether in any language, even if your name is Hey You. And you'll grow up not connecting to your name because it takes a lot, at least some life experiences to grow into it. And once you begin to grow into it, you'll realize that it serves you. Right? When you're a comedian, it's very convenient, the LA. When you're a teacher of Torah, it's very convenient to be called David Pesach. God calls you by your name. So your reality with God is your name. That's why when you study the Torah of the name, there's something there. It is your relationship that God calls you by. And when you get into the name, you'll see the mazel, A, that it's there, and B, that it works for you. You can rely on your name when you get into the vessels of your name. And King David's Psalms are almost like one big name. The secrets of the universe come out through King David's inspiration. It's like one huge name experience. That as he writes, the inspiration comes out. That God speaks to him as he writes. Okay. That's why that's what goes into Psalm 72. And as I said, we're going to do 12, 13, 14, 15. And as always, 1 through 11 on 1 foot, supersonic turbo speed. He's telling King Solomon, be righteous, be just, judge with wisdom. You have wisdom not to be smart. You have wisdom to judge. Right? It's not an accident that you judge. And you're not delivered wisdom for its own sake. You are given the wisdom so that you will judge. That you'll go all over the world and bring the true Torah revelation to the nations. And when you bring righteousness into repair, it becomes tzedakah. Tzedek becomes tzedakah. When there's tzedakah, righteousness, charitable acts, sharing, the troubles of the world go away. Olam hazeh can become olam haba. But this will only work if you have the fear of God. The fear of God means that you have the revelation coming down in that prophetic divine inspiration experiences. You merit the revelation of God. And the more the revelation you have, an experience with revelation, you can articulate that revelation. If you're articulating the revelation, that's really the Torah vessels of the next world. And you'll realize the vessels of this world were actually just makeup to make you look like the Joker, and you thought that was an attractive appearance in the mirror or the vanity of this world. Anyone that knows King Solomon will say, Hevel Hevolim is this world. Vanity of vanities. For man stumbles on that mirror. When we stop the vanities and we fulfill the words of Ecclesiastes, fear God and keep his commandments, then we find it was not paint for the face that we accumulated at all, but rather it was polish for the silver and gold treasures that King Solomon says that we will possess, and not as reward, in the very understanding of Torah as a revelation of God himself. And now it'll be super shined up. That goes out as light to the nations. That light going out to the nations will be articulated vessels of Torah. That the earth sucks up like a sponge. And all the time there will be the word and Torah coming out of Zion, like a Windows software update constantly. Righteousness will be proclaimed on the Temple Mount. And then that's where we ended off last week. From that point, kings and ministers and noblemen will come from all over the world to take shelter in Jerusalem, pay tribute, offer gifts. Now we can be a chazer, a pig, and sit on those gifts, but this is what King David is saying. And I think it's in this week's verse, if I'm not mistaken. Give of those gifts to the world. Spread the wealth. Give the gold. Make the world prosperous. Right? Don't hoard. In fact, it's verse number 15. Distribute and give the gold of Sheba. Sheba is one of the nobility in kingdom that comes to Jerusalem to visit King Solomon. Spread the gold. Make peace and righteousness flourish all over the world. Okay. Let's go ahead and read 12, 13, 14, 15 in English, and then we'll go through the Hebrew and then give the explanation. This is Psalm 72, verses 12, 13, 14, 15. And we're going to go ahead and call this... what do we call the class? Is a good idea. I think we're calling it the compassion for the nations. That's really what this is. For he will deliver the destitute person who cries out. and the poor one with none to help him. He will have pity on the impoverished and destitute, and the souls of the destitute he will save. From fraud and from violence he will redeem their soul, and precious will be their blood in his eyes. And he will live, and he will give him of the gold of Sheba, and he will pray for him continually, and all day long he will bless him. Okay. Those are the verses that we're going to deal with. All right, we're going to go ahead and call this the compassion upon nations. Or, you know what? Compassion placed upon nations. All right, number 12. I'm gonna do each pasuk, each verse, in its own little world. So keep that in mind. All right, save the destitute with salvation. That of all of the attributes that the Messianic king or King Solomon should have, is he should have the fear of God and the ability to recognize, to save the destitute, evion, destitute, that they're crying out and literally pouring of spirit. They should be saved from oppression. And thus he saves the ani, another term for destitute or poor, from all of his struggles, that he has no helper to come to him. All right, let's unpack that verse real quick. There's a really famous root word in Hebrew, shua. A lot of people will say that Yeshu comes from this. It sounds like Yehoshua. It's also the same letters, Asav, Ayin, Vav, and Shin. Now, a really nice definition and permutation of those letters is Shua. When we speak about Yehoshua, Joshua, God will save, or God will turn, as in God will appreciate the offering, such as we said by Cain, God didn't turn to me. Here you're saying God did turn to me, like Elisha. Right? To me, God turned. The prophet who was the understudy of Elijah. Here, Shua can mean turned or salvation, right? But in this case, it means Shua, to cry out. And the crying out is a very, very strong outpouring. And it comes with the word soek. So a real outpouring of spirit. The Evian, the destitute, he's pouring out, he's crying. And we have to see the pouring out. And the idea is to save him from oppression. He has no helper. This is a major foundation in basically philosophy of Torah. Amalek runs the world until we have the redeemed state with the Beis HaMikdash, the Holy Temple. Everyone's looking for their personal savior, which is why idolatry has its power. Right? The ultimate level is just save me. Right? Just be my savior. We see this on the micro and the macro. This is not a Christian concept. This is a laziness of mankind concept. We all want to just give into the system, right? My job stinks. It pays me a decent wage, but I'm a slave. And I'm saying, just save me. Just pay my bills and let me be like a drone and live this life. I mean, that is Edom to a T. We try to get spirituality in the intermittent times. But life is oppressive. Or this Amalekite existence over us is oppressive. Whether you're Jewish, Ger, Noahide, we live in that Amalekite world until God is glorified on Mount Zion. And we're all looking for little salvations, when the real energy needs to be given to help. Mankind needs to be to help each other. King David tells King Solomon, you need to have the fear of God to see how to help, when to help. Don't just do salvation projects. That's akin to selling yourselves to slavery, and then we just repeat the whole cycle over again. If you want to save somebody from oppression, then help them. Because if you save them, well, now you're just oppressing them also. Maybe you're a nice oppressor. Some jobs in America are really good. Not just by wage, just pleasant to work in. Yeah, there was a Star Trek episode in The Next Generation about the Klingons that were sacrificed in a war in an outer star system. And I think it was the Romulans that were there to govern over the Klingons. And in the end, they intermarried. And the Klingons, they had these children that were half Klingon, half Romulan. But the point is that they couldn't leave. The honor was disgraced, and the Klingons and the Romulans were there to patrol. That's oppression. And they fought against Worf, who wanted to liberate the camp. But it was oppression. They were happy in their exile. Life is good as an outcast. Right? No longer am I an honorable Klingon. I'm just here as an outcast, living out my days happily in exile. That's what the world has been reduced to since day one. Adam being kicked out of the Garden of Eden. Well, it's not that bad. All right, so I'm not in the Garden of Eden, but life is pretty good. He found his little salvation. What King David is instructing King Solomon is don't accept salvation. Don't just be there and say, here, take your stuff, go away. You need to help these people. See with the fear of God how you can help. With their Torah, their knowledge, their everything. Because what they really seek is a helper, says King David, not a salvation plan, a personal Messiah, as the normative definition goes. We want a thriving planet of society, humanity, mankind. And a really good level of oppression won't cut it. It must be a helping society being led from Zion, the inspirational source. So the Evian, the poor and destitute, are, let's say, those that are the furthest from Mount Zion, when the time comes for there to be a Zion. And those people out there, this is not a caste system. Right? Salvation, oppression is a caste system. Helping is not a caste system. Some people are simply near, some people are simply far. And to help and to extend the hand all around the world is to give humanity the single most precious, desirable that it craves. Its identity, its purpose, its function, and its meaning. Don't deny them of that. Because once you save them, and you technically are oppressing them, just giving them life support, they never actually find their function. There's no greater curse upon mankind than that. That's verse 12. 13. Take pity on the low and the destitute to give them sustenance and vitality. And the souls of the destitute shall be saved. Not only as salvation of the body, but rather salvation of their souls. that they should learn the way to go and rebuke. Now that sounds pretty harsh. But when we break down not the harshness, but the concept, to take pity on the world, to give them sustenance and vitality. That is the definition of the ger. If you remember, in the book of Devarim, it says, give the ger bread and garment. No different here, right? The gerim are the low, and we should just throw a dirty shirt at them with holes in it and some stale bread, and that's the mitzvah. And we say, for sure that's the mitzvah. Don't you know that that's all Jacob asked of God? And that's not what's going on. Remember Jacob with the sticks? Remember that? With the rods, the speckled, the spotted, the striped, and with Laban, he did the sticks, and next thing you know, Jacob has an entourage and livestock, and I think he has a little bit more than the dirty shirt that he was left with after his encounter with Eliphaz, the offspring of Asaph, his brother. The point is that those sticks, not the knowledge of those sticks, goes back to Shem. Shem gave Jacob the gift of a lifetime, the knowledge of wisdom, of how to make a living in this world. The gift of wisdom. Again, for another analogy, these words are archaic and even draconian. Mazel and names and inspiration. This is the problem largely with Torah. We hear these fantastic words: prophecy, inspiration, names, wisdom, garment, vitality, sustenance. And that sounds to me like McDonald's, Walmart. Nothing. Just American garbage. Not that America is garbage, but just the marketing consumerism. Because our vessels are tainted by things like the internet, TV, and pop culture. These are English words that have actual meaning. But we dumb them down. Right? Wisdom is, it's really wise to come to this, to do whatever little things we do with, or we use the words like wisdom. Do yourself a favor. This is the biggest favor you can ever do yourself. Look up as many words in English that come out of a Torah class as possible. Because when I say wisdom, I'm speaking about the Hebrew term chachma. And chachma has a very specific connotation. And 9 times out of 10, if not 10 out of 10, when you look up wisdom, it'll align in the definition with chachma. But if we go by the street knowledge of how we use the words like wisdom, kindness, we dumb it down, we don't think it through, we use it in a sloppy fashion, which is a nice way of saying we take out all the flavor, all the taste. Instead of giving you a hamburger, I give you a paste, right? A pasted delicacy, if you could call it at that point a delicacy. This is the message that King Solomon is giving to the ger. Don't just give him Torah and say, okay, go away, here you go. You do what I say. Give them the tools necessary that they will grow and absorb your words and articulation, that you will gain wisdom, a way of cultivating the land, And a nice definition of wisdom is the ability to create and implement something that works. Right, I know how to set up a hot dog stand. No matter where I go in the world, I can have a hot dog stand running in 3 days, guaranteed to make a livelihood. Or even a better example, fishing. Can you imagine what a fisherman can do? If you know the wisdom and art of fishing, you will never ever starve again. You will always have the means to make a living. Then, by that definition, you will have your garment, you will have your bread, you have your craft, you have your wisdom. From wisdom, you have the ability to gain more wisdom. Give a wise man wisdom, he becomes smarter or wiser. If you dumb them down, they never had wisdom, what do they have to compound with? Here, I'll give you a stipend, okay? No wisdom. You get $20 a week from me. That's oppression. What happens when the money runs out? I go away. I forget about you. Funding stops. Now what? You learned and gained nothing in that time period. You accepted salvation from your master. You were oppressed. You'll say, but he was really nice to me, Rabbi Katz. He even threw me a bone. That's the whole point. You were denied the ability and rights to grow and become productive. You were oppressed. You were held down. This is the real pitfalls of society. Socialism, communism. Easy to control. The Torah says the opposite. Allow people to function, grow. Don't save them and don't take them into oppression. Help them. Let me show you how to fish. Solomon should go around the world showing people wisdom. Really showing the wisdom to the world. Personally in your face. So that there will always be a working order of sustenance and vitality around the world. Right? Obama wanted, in the last election, wanted to say, give them free stuff. Romney's approach was, teach them how to work, and they'll generate money for the economy through working. In this analogy, Romney, God forbid, is like King Solomon, and Obama is your resident Amalekite strategy. Don't worry, Romney's strategy would have shifted to Obama's anyways. And what does it mean, rebuke? King Solomon's going to go around saying, go, get up, go away. No. Rebuke it's not rebuke. You're wrong, you're this. The book of Proverbs starts off, King Solomon proverbed many proverbs for the sake of inspiring Musar. The level of force from truth that inspires you to change your ways. And Hanhaga, to go in a better way. Right? I'll give you another example. And working in a restaurant, one of the biggest boring labors is rolling silverware. Right? Every table is going to have at least, 4 sets of silverware. So every 15-year-old kid that gets hired, he putzes around, puts the silverware in the middle, rolls it, takes him 5 minutes for a roll of silverware. You say, no, compadre, come over here. Put the silverware in the corner. Fold the corner up over the silverware. Put your palm on the silverware and just roll it. Just let your hand go. You're done in literally a millisecond. You just rolled a set of silverware. You can be done with an entire restaurant full in 20 minutes versus the 3 hours you were on pace to do. So every restaurant has its little tricks for all the kids that come to work. That's Musar and Hanhaga. I'm rebuking you. You don't know what you're doing. You'll say, don't you dare rebuke me. And don't you tell me what to do. But the answer is, it's great rebuke and it's great change of way. I'm not just rebuking you. I'm giving you wisdom. The world works in a certain way, and I don't mean philosophically. Your hand has grooves on it. And the napkin and the silverware form a little mound with other grooves. And God made it through mazel. That if you just fold it and put the silverware in the corner and you just run your hand over it, it works every time. That's wisdom, that's mazel, and you will keep your job and you will get your bread. And now you have a skill. You can go anywhere in the world and get a restaurant job, which at 15 years old, it's a big deal. And then obviously it grows over, as the expectations grow. Pro golfers are always perfecting their golf swing. Difference being first place in a tournament and last place. Every wisdom or art in the world has ways of musar, rebuke, and change of pace. Life is no different. If you wouldn't yell at me to pick up my garbage, I wouldn't fight back. I'm giving you musar. This is how I work. Say it nicely. Ask me nicely. Things like this. The world has little musar rebuke sessions. When we do it right, it's not rebuke anger. It's rebuke from a revelation of wisdom. Let the nations grow with rebuke. Show them how it works. Work together and learn how it works and how the change of pace goes. From Zion, the Torah goes out. And from that, the way the world works goes out with it also. In a very dynamic world. We want to liberate the body and liberate the souls. And why does it say to save? Here, salvation is maximum help. Right? We want to liberate society. We want to give musar to inspire change. Don't just save people. Eliminate oppression. Show people how to not oppress, but to help his fellow man. We want to eliminate babysitting. Allow people to be free and cognitive, Torah-enlightened people on the whole entire planet to have that wisdom to make an impression on the world no matter who he is or where he is. And the world yields infinite amount of wisdom. So the world to come is going to be an ultimate sweetening experience. Here, the musar, a rebuke, is not din, judgment. It's going to be a constant sweetening, improvement, tov ma'od, always becoming better, to become very good. Verse 13. Now verse 14. From fraud and from violence he will redeem their soul, and precious will be their blood in his eyes. They need to be redeemed from stealing. Stealing that's overt and covert of the mind and right in front of their face. To be redeemed from this scenario. That their blood should be precious in his eyes. And therefore, they'll be redeemed immediately from the wicked. They should not spill their blood any longer. Welcome to Amalek. Welcome to Edom. Welcome to exile. Welcome to this world. This is the world we live in. right? The world that where we call friendship, really, you're just supporting my habit. That's how the world works. Right? We go and pay tribute to members of society, like some kind of quasi false priest. We get cheap goods like McDonald's, and in return, they give us salvation. Give me your money, right? $5 for a Happy Meal. And you say, okay, it's not so bad, $5. Here, take it. And I give you what you want. You want salvation, right? I guarantee you, you will not be hungry the rest of the day. Isn't that what you want? Just take away my hunger. Whatever it takes. Just, I don't want to be hungry all day long. I don't want to go starving. All right, we can do that. You give me $5. I will give you some concoction of pink slime stuff, chemicals. We'll pass it through the FDA because they're being bought off too. And you won't feel hunger the rest of the day. I promise you. And we have billions of people eating McDonald's. You know what? Not one goes hungry. There's nothing better than a Happy Meal from McDonald's. Everyone's good. Got my chips and my barbecue sauce and my Big Mac and a smoothie. I'm good to go. And we don't want you going to the competitor. We'll make you feel guilty. And this is the world we live in. We report to our authorities and they give us salvation. Meanwhile, they're stealing left and right. Why did the price of the Big Mac go up this week? Oh, it's the new version. Don't you see the wrapper? It's blue now. Oh, last week it was red? Yeah. The blue wrapper is a whole different deal. Nothing changed. In fact, the blue wrapper probably means they got more of a discount, and now it's cheaper, and they just took more money from it. So you got a lesser product, and you paid more for it. Stealing. Hidden charges and phone bills and purchases. The flood came in the time of Noah from open theft. And this is what King David is telling King Solomon. Remove this thing called stealing. The commentary at the end of the tractate of the Talmud, Bava Kama, says the reason why exiles lasted so long is because the gross amount of stealing. We are repairing it for thousands of years. Then that's not to say that's already covert stealing. How about the overt stealing? We have a society that just steals openly. And we give into it. We're indoctrinated and trained to give into it. You'll never have the 7 laws of Noah in that world. It's antithetical. So God has a 7 laws system to fight and combat that world. And that's the task. Institute those laws, capital punishment if you're over on this and that to start with. Because blood does matter. Blood is precious. But we are told, no, this race and this gender, he's lesser blood. Or if I'm the head honcho, my blood is more important than your blood. Right? I mean, imagine McDonald's if you're not a God-fearing person. I have my mansions all over the world making tons of money. Right? This guy doesn't believe in God. And I find out that there's a chemical that realistically can kill you. And we did a callback on it, right? We got it out before it became a mass hysteria. But it could be that I caused cancer to like 5,000 people. Does this guy care? The answer is no. I don't know you. What do I know from you? So what? You should know better than eat McDonald's hamburgers. And that same exploitation is how the world runs. So what does King David say? You have to have fear of God. If you take somebody's life or hurt somebody, for crying out loud, you got to care about it. You can't just close your eyes and say, well, better them than me. But that's the world, is it not? Overtly, just, I don't care. Yeah, I put chemicals in it. So what? I just saw an article on the internet. Those shoes that cater to the toes of your feet, oh, it makes you run like a natural sprinter of the Olympic Games in Athens in the year 1800. But no, it doesn't. They found out it actually hurts your feet. This is a witchcraft world, an Amalekite world, a Bilam and Balak world. The generation of the flood. And it always just turns over generation to generation. King David lays down the bottom line for Solomon, end it. This is how you end it. You must care about righteousness and justice and the nations and Torah and peace and Tzaddikim and caring about everybody and spreading the wealth, spreading the wisdom. That is your priority. They cry out, you help them. You don't oppress, you don't save. Take compassion on the creation. Spread the wisdom. Some people are going to have more wisdom than others. Share that knowledge. Show people how to do it. This psalm is really about how to get to Olam Haba and reject Olam Hazeh. How to get to the next world where we have our purpose and function and meaning and what we're supposed to do, and leaving behind the filth of this world, which didn't have to be this way. But people don't want to let go of it. They want to run the world this way. And then there's hoarding. Verse number 15. Verse number 15. And he will live, and he will give him of the gold of Sheba, and he will pray for him continually, and all day long he will bless him. This is the fractal Shem Abraham program. Give the gold of Sheba. We say, who gave to who? Abraham gave to Shem, or Shem gave to Abraham? Right, we're saying that the Amalekite world of vanities, these little pimp leaders are like a quasi-Kohen priest program that you bring them tributes. And then they protect you with salvation. But with Abraham and Shem, it didn't happen that way. Remember, Shem was a priest and Abraham became a priest. They were both priests. That's where if you want to see what is a true man, an Ish Emes, look no further than Shem, Abraham, Temple Mount, exactly where King David is telling King Solomon to focus on. Who gave to who, Abraham or Shem? We don't know. Because they are synonymous. Shem blessed Abraham, Abraham blessed Shem. One has one function, the other has another. The gold got distributed around the world. Shem and Abraham mutually feed off each other for the growth of the world to come. Who's the poor man and who's not? Who's the king? Some can say Shem, some can say Abraham. I'll close with this. If you look in I forget if it's the beginning letters or end letters of the Melchizedek Shem passage with Abraham. What is it, chapter 14? I forget which verse in Genesis, Lech Lecha. You know what? Let me see if I have. I'll tell you right now. Here it is. Solomon's message is really delivered from David to Solomon most clearly with the Shem Abraham fractal. Chapter 14, verse 18 in Lechacha. And Melchizedek, the complete king, brought out bread and wine, and he was a priest to God above. And he blessed him. Said, blessed is Abraham to God above, acquire heaven and earth. And blessed is the God above that he delivers your enemies in your hand. And he gave him a tenth of everything. That verse is the essence of what David is saying to King Solomon. And David ends his songs with number 72. And you know what? Melchizedek fires back. Psalm 110. Ata kohen liolam al dibarti Melchizedek. To David by Solomon, you are a priest forever by my word Melchizedek. And when you look at the initial letters, the complete king who brought out bread, the same bread we're talking about here, spells none other than Shlomo, Solomon. Thank you very much, and next time we'll see you for verse, class number 9, at least verse number 16, and Psalm 72, and what verses are contained we'll find out through the preparation, but at least we'll continue to verse number 16. Thank you very much, hope you enjoyed, and soon we're going to finish, and where we go from there, I don't know, we'll see. But in that case, have a great week.